Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Orange Nation podcast. I'm your host, Emma Lightfoot, accompanied by Dylan Walker. On today's episode, we'll be talking about all things Big 12 football, starting with the Oklahoma State versus Kansas State game. Dylan, why don't you break down some Cowboy football for us?
Well, Emma, where do I start? Bottom line is that this team is obviously in a rebuilding season. We've seen a lot of struggle from the Cowboys, particularly in the offense. It seems almost as if Coach Gundy came into the season with a lot of loose ends that are just now getting tied up. The delay in finalizing a quarterback, I think, set the team back a fair amount because they just weren't able to get into a rhythm with anyone, and having three guys splitting reps just makes it so much tougher to get into the nitty-gritty of a player's skill set. But aside from that, another problem for OSU's offense has been finding success in the run game. The leading rusher for the Cowboys is Ollie Gordon, and so far he's totaled 366 yards on the season and averages about 6.3 yards per carry. However, outside of him, the average is only 3 yards per carry. And then, over the last few weeks, the team has gone back to the basics to help prepare for Saturday, but let's listen to what Mike Gundy has to say about those changes.
Tom Osborne once said that if you're struggling in an area you want to get better at, use the eraser side of your pencil and not the lead side. You got a better chance of getting better than you do making things up or reaching. So I go toward that in the fact that, and that's what we've done on offense the last 3 or 4 weeks. We got rid of some stuff and we went back to some basic stuff and we lessened the different ways that we run the football and said, let's get good at 2 or 3 things and see if we can get downhill.
Mike Gundy and the Cowboys are underdogs against the Jayhawks for the first time since 2007, which is also the last time Kansas won in Stillwater. And with that being said, and after what happened last year, I'll definitely be curious to see what adjustments are made going into the game.
I'm also curious to see what adjustments are made. The Jayhawks have been soaring this season and are 5-1 headed into the OSU matchup. Now, Dylan, last season, Kansas ran through the 18-ranked Cowboys in a home 37-16 win. This season, with the struggles the Cowboys have had lately, I wouldn't be surprised if Saturday's game had a similar outcome. The Jayhawks are ranked 23 and are among 10 Power 5 teams to start 5-1 or better, including Georgia, Michigan, and Alabama. And those are some names that I would want to be in the same category as. Coach Lance Leipold is confident in the team's abilities and what the Jayhawks have already proven this season, but he's also aware that playing in Boone Pickens Stadium presents enough challenges on its own. Let's see what the coach has to say.
That was pretty disappointing performance down there 2 years ago. I know that, but it's 2 years ago, and some of the guys that are still here definitely grown and matured since then. And last year I thought we played pretty well here. So take them for what they're worth, and but we've got to find a way to go down to a tough place, like I said, and find a way to win a game.
A win against Oklahoma State would give Kansas 6 wins and qualify the Jayhawks to appear in a bowl game for the second consecutive season. KU has only appeared in consecutive bowl games once in program history. Now, let's take a step back and look at the conference as a whole going into this weekend. Dylan, how are this week's Big 12 matchups looking?
Okay, before we get into the matchups, let's talk about the standings. As of right now, you have OU and Texas at 1 and 2 in the Big 12. It makes sense to me. The two teams headed into the SEC should be the most dominant in the conference. And after the crazy Red River comeback from OU last weekend, I definitely think they deserve that top spot. West Virginia at number 3 threw me off a little bit, but honestly, the program has made a big comeback this year. They've been pretty solid on both sides of the ball so far this season and are actually just 1 win away from meeting their 5-win record from last year. With the way things are going right now, I definitely think they have that in the bag. Iowa State and Texas Tech sit at numbers 5 and 6. Neither of them have stood out crazily to me. I think that they're both very solid programs with good players, but I think this year they haven't proven to be anything super special. And then to round out the bottom of the standings, we have Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. Not unexpected. It's hard to come into a Power 5 league and just be hot. The Big 12 is certainly one of the most confusing and unpredictable leagues out there. And for that reason, I think these teams have yet to see where they truly fall into the lineup, but I don't necessarily think they will find those answers this season. But Emma, I know there's another big game going on this week. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, it's actually number 10 USC at number 21 Notre Dame. So looking at that, someone has got to corral the defending Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams. He has 22 touchdown passes this season already against only 1 interception. He's also a dual threat. Williams can run outside the pocket or he can throw for 50 yards down the field. It's not going to be easy for this Irish team to slow him down. However, USC has shown flashes of concern in games against Arizona State and Colorado this season. Although they are undefeated, the Trojans are not unbeatable. Notre Dame has 2 losses this season, one to Louisville last week and one to Ohio State. It doesn't really make sense to me that the Irish are 3-point favorites to win this game, but you never know what can happen in college football until it does. But with that being said, I don't think that the Irish will be the team to hand USC its first loss of the season. I think USC will walk away with a 28-25 win against Notre Dame. Dylan, who you got?
I've been a USC fan for as long as I can remember, and when it comes to USC Notre Dame, there's only one option, and I'm just going to have to tell you straight up, fight on, USC is taking the dub.
Let's go. All right, we're going to look at some other matchups taking place this weekend, just in the Big 12. So the first one we have is an 11 a.m. game, Iowa State at Cincinnati. I'm taking Iowa State on this one, even though Cincinnati were playoff contenders last year and did really well with the new coaching changes that they made to the staff this season. I see Iowa State walking away with the win.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. Cincinnati is the 5-point favorite as of right now, but I just think that there's too much uncertainty, and I think that there's just a lot of unknowns when it comes to that team. I think Iowa State is much more consistent, and so I'm going to have to say they're going to take the win.
Yeah, next we have a 2:30 matchup, BYU at TCU. Dylan, who you got?
I'm going to go with BYU on this one. I think that they have had a pretty interesting season. I think that their schedule has been pretty fair for them, and I think that we've had a good visual of kind of what they're capable of. So I'm going to think that they're going to take the win against TCU.
Yeah, I would agree. I think BYU being 4-1 this season has already said enough for the program. I think they're proving themselves, and I think they'll continue to do that at TCU in Fort Worth on Saturday. And next we have a night matchup, 6 p.m., K-State at Texas Tech. I'm taking K-State on this one. I think they had a little bit of a hiccup against OSU last weekend, but I don't think they'll let that continue against Texas Tech.
I'm going to have to say Tech on this one. I think that they've had the tougher schedule, and I think that just how things are going for them, they're going to be a pretty hard team to slow down. They've been hot recently, and I don't see them falling to K-State this weekend, so I'm going to say Tech takes the win.
And lastly, of course, we have the 2:30 Saturday matchup, Kansas at OSU. I'm taking Kansas. Unfortunately, it hurts me to say that, but I'm taking Kansas 30, OSU 24.
Emma, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm doing the same. I'm going to say Kansas takes the win, 27-24. We got 1 field goal difference. I just think that their run game is just, obviously it's better, but I just think that it's almost unstoppable from an OSU defense right now, and I just think that they're the tougher team right now, and they've got it in the bag.
Yeah, that will do it for this week's episode of the Orange Nation podcast. I am Emma Lightfoot, again joined by Dylan Walker. Thank you so much for listening, and go Post.